Hi everyone and welcome to the first video tutorial of the WinterDream Academy. Forgive the artificial voice, but the lack of good recording equipment made me rely on text-to-speech. Anyway, in this first video we will cover the A, B, C of RPG Maker MZ and we will set up a really simple game. Let's start by creating our first project. We can click on File and then New Project, or we can click on the New Project icon. Here we can choose the directory where all the project files will be located, as well as a short name that will be our project folder name and a game title that will appear in the game menu screen. Now let's wait for RPG Maker to copy all the default assets in the directory. Okay, here we are in our new game. With this button we can test our project. Let's try it. Here are our heroes walking around a grass field. Not much to do. Let's make things a little more interesting. First of all, let's make the map more interesting than an infinite field of grass. To do so, we need to set our map properties. Right-click on the map in the map tree and click Edit. Alternatively, you can click on the map in the map tree and press space. Here we can give a name to the map. This name will be for our use only. If we want to show a map name in the game, we can set up a display name. This name will be shown in the upper left corner of the game screen. Here we can find out tile sets. Overworld is generally used for world maps. Outside is used for towns, forest and other external maps. Inside is generally used for interiors and rooms. Dungeon is quite self-explanatory. SF stands for modern/futuristic tile sets. We will go with outside for this map. In this area we can set the map size. It's expressed in tiles. Let's make our map a little bigger. This whole area is for setting up enemy encounters. We will skip it for now, but it will be explained later. Autoplay BGM will play a background music every time the player enters this map, while Autoplay BGS will play a background sound effect like rain, wind, and similar. Every other setting will be explained in a more advanced tutorial. To edit our map, we need to select the map editing mode here. RPG Maker MZ can use up to 4 layers for map drawing. It's a very useful feature, but we will learn it in advanced tutorials. For now, let's stick to the automatic layering mode. To draw our map we can use the pencil. The pencil draws tiles where we click. Alternatively, we can use the rectangle tool. It drags and drops a rectangle filled with our selected tile. The same goes for ellipse tool. The flood fill tool will fill every equal area with our selected tile. Now let's create our base map. First of all, I'll clean the map using the rectangle tool. Then I'll start drawing a forest. I'll keep the rectangle tool selected and I'll choose the top forest tile. After this I will draw the bottom forest tiles. Keep in mind that a lot of RPG Maker MZ standard assets can be stretched. For example, I can make the logs bigger. Let's add a dirty path that goes into the forest. And let's add some extra items on the map with the pencil tool. Let me show you why. We will learn about layers. Often the automatic mode of RPG Maker MZ does things like that. While with manual layers we will be able to add the bush above the tall grass. Now, let's continue to draw our map. Every tile set has multiple pages of tiles, as we can see here by selecting B or C. This tiles usually consist in details to add to the map, and the major difference with page A is that they do not interact with the other tiles and they cannot be stretched. What you see is what you get. Okay, let's click again on the Playtest button and let's try our game. As we can see, we now have a map instead of an empty grass field, but we cannot interact with the world. There is nothing to do. Let's solve this problem. RPG Maker MZ uses the events to make the world around you alive. Events can do anything, from dialogues, to shops, to party modifications, to cutscenes. Everything is done using the events. To create an event, we need to select the event mode here. As you can see, the tile set disappears and now there is a blank space where all the events of the map will be listed. Let's start by creating a simple NPC with a dialogue. To create an event, we can right-click on a tile and select New. Or we can select a tile and press Enter. There is really a lot to say about events, but for this tutorial we will stick to the very base of events creation. Let's give our event a name. This is for our use only and it won't be seen in the game. For now let's skip the conditions, but we will be back for them in a bit. Let's select an image for our NPC by double-clicking on the image property. Once we selected the image, the event editor will automatically change the priority of the event to same as character, meaning the player will not be able to go below or above him when colliding with this event on the map. By default, the trigger is set to action button, meaning the player will have to click on the event when he's close to him. The content window is the core of an event. It gives instructions to the editor on what to do. Let's start with a simple dialogue. We can add it by double-clicking on the content window, by right-click and then selecting New, or by pressing Enter. Here we can see all the options the event editor allow us to use. It's 3 pages full of commands. It might look overwhelming if it's the first time you are using RPG Maker, but don't worry, it will become clear with time. To show a dialogue, we need to select the very first option, Show Text. Here we can enter the text and optionally we can select a face or a name. As you can see, our event is now listed in the upper left window. Let's try again our game and see what happens. The NPC now reacts to our action and tells the "Good day" dialogue line, but it's stuck to repeat this loop forever. Let's go a little deeper. Let's open again the event. We can use right-click and edit, or we can select it and press Enter. We will make a small dialogue that ends with a request from the NPC. To avoid having to select every time the name and the face of the talking person, you can copy and paste the dialogue, using right-click Copy and Paste or Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V. You could make fixed dialogues, or you can let the player choose the answer. To do so, we need to select the Show Choice option. Once we did, the editor will show us a number of when, followed by the reply we could select in the show choice box. Everything that goes below a when will happen only if that decision is selected, while everything that is placed below end will happen regardless. Now let's add some more dialogues. And let's check once again our game. As we can see now, the dialogue is complete and it has a choice, but the game doesn't remember that we already talked with the NPC, running the same instructions over and over. To fix this, we need to understand switches and event pages. Switches are triggers that can be either on or off. By default they all start in the off status. Switches are global, meaning that if we set switch number 1 on, every other event in the game will know that switch number 1 is on. Alongside global switches we have self switches. Those are related to the current event only and will not affect other events in the game. For this tutorial let's use self switches, as we are using only this event for now. We will set self switch A on if the player say yes to Marcus' help request, and we will set self switch B on if the player turns down the request. To do so, let's use control self switch in the game progression group. Now let's move on and let's learn pages. This might sound complicated at first, but it's a really important part of RPG Maker MZ events. As you can see, we can create a new event page. This will create a blank page placed after the one we were editing. Let's select once again our NPC image and we are ready to write another part of dialogue. This page will handle the situation where our NPC Marcus asked the hero for help and he refused. We will make him ask once more and the hero will be able to answer again yes or no. But how can we tell the editor that he need to show us this dialogue instead of the initial dialogue? If you remember, we set two different self switches after the hero choice. In the refusal case we set self switch B on. So let's go on our second page and set the condition self switch B on. This will tell RPG Maker MZ to play this page only when self switch B is on. It's important to keep in mind that RPG Maker MZ only use one page at the time, so if he play this page, he won't be playing the other page. Let's turn self switch A on if the player says yes. Now, as we did before, let's create a new page and set the condition self switch A on. In this page, the hero accepted the request and our NPC Marcus is waiting for him to complete the mission. Let's playtest once more our game. The first time I'll say no 2 times and Marcus will keep asking me to save her sister. This time I'll say yes right away, skipping the second page we did. Before going on with our little adventure, a little warning about pages. Remember that the page with the highest number has the priority over the pages with lower numbers. For example, if we have both self-switch A and self-switch B activated, we will see page number 3 as the conditions to show the page are met and it has the highest priority. It's a good thing to always set specific conditions for the page activations to avoid problems. But let's go to save Marcus' sister, shall we? Now I'll quickly create another map as a child of this map by right-clicking on Outside Woods Map and selecting New. Ordering the map this way is really important to keep your work area organized. I'll call this map Woods. I'll make it the same size and we will make it more dangerous. Let's double-click in Encounter. We will add a 2 goblins troop to it and press OK. This means that at an average of 30 steps in the map, a casual encounter will happen, making us fight 2 goblins. I'll speed up the video as we will look into map making in another tutorial. RPG Maker MZ has the feature to quickly add some common events like treasure chest and doors. All we have to do is to right-click on the desired tile, select Quick Event Creation and we will go for treasure. We can change the graphic of our treasure chest and what's inside. Let's add an healing potion to help in the fight against the goblins. What RPG Maker does is to create an event that we can edit like our NPC event. Let's double-click on the treasure chest and let's see how the event is made. The first command play a sound effect of the chest opening, then we have a move event command that change the direction of the chest showing the opening animation. It activates a self-switch. If you remember, this will be useful to let the game know that we already opened the chest. It adds the item we specified. Let's edit the number to give 10 health potions to our party by right-clicking and changing the amount to 10. In the end it shows a text telling the player he found a potion. Let's change this too, this time by using space. The second page is empty and shows the chest opened. The player won't be able to interact again with the chest once opened. Now let's add Marcus' sister NPC, a door, and the monster's leader NPC. We will leave them empty for now. Before going into the details of this map, let's ask ourselves a question. How do we know if player is going into the woods to save Marcus' sister or he is just strolling around? If you remember, we talked about the regular switches and the fact that they are shared among all the events, so let's go back to our first NPC and let's activate switch number 1 when we accept his mission. Let's also add a transition to the other map using quick event creation and then clicking on transfer. We can set the transfer location. Let's click on the entrance of the new map. Now let's return to the new map and let's create a transfer to the old map. It's now time to use one of the most useful event command of RPG Maker, the conditional branch. As we said, the player could come into the woods even without talking to Marcus, so let's add a slightly different reaction when he encounters the monster's leader. Let's open the monster's leader event and let's select the conditional branch from the flow tab. The conditional branch is a powerful command to check if a condition is met. If that condition is met, it will play a set of commands, if not, it can play another set of commands. In our example, we want to know if the player accepted the mission from Marcus, so we will select to check if switch number 1 is on and we will activate the create else branch. Likewise to the show choice command, we can create different commands if the condition is met or if the condition is not met. Everything below if switch 1 is on will happen if the switch is active, everything below else will happen if switch 1 is off. Everything below end will happen regardless. So let's add some flavor dialogue. Now we have two different dialogues but only one outcome. Combat. Still, we don't have the monster's leader in our database, so now it's a good time to see how to create a monster and a troop. We need to enter the RPG Maker database. Here we have everything, from heroes, to monsters, to items, to skills, to system values. We need to enter the enemies tab and we need to increase the number of monsters in the database by clicking on change maximum. Now we can set a name for our monster. We need to set his statistic. For now let's not get too deep with that, let's just set some higher numbers compared to the goblins. By double-clicking on the image we can select the graphic for our monster. We can also set the rewards in experience points and gold for defeating the monster. In the action patterns we can select various skills from the skills database. The rating will decide the priority of the skill use. Now we need to create a troop with our new monster, as combat are called via troops and not using individual monsters. As before, we need to change the maximum troop number to add ours. Then we can add our monster to the troop and we can give a name to the troop or auto-name it. Now that we created the encounter, we can return to our monster leader NPC and add the battle. We need to go in the third tab and select Battle Processing. Let's select out Monster Leader and click OK. With the default options of battle processing, the player has to win the fight or it will be game over, so we can continue our event command giving for granted that the battle has been won. Let's add a self switch and let's add another page with the monster down. When we have peculiar graphic that doesn't have a proper facing direction, we might want to select Direction Fix. This option will keep the event in the same position regardless from what angle the hero activates it. Doors, chest, static items all need to have Direction Fix enabled to avoid problems. Here is a quick example. Look at the lock on the door, it disappears as the door event tries to change the graphic with what it thinks it's a face-down graphic. So let's fix out door. First of all, we are going to open it and enabled the Direction Fix option. Then we need our heroes to open it, but how we tell the game that we defeated the monster leader? We already talked about switches and I think we already know how to use them, so let's try something else. Let's try to open the door by having the right key. First of all, let's set up the item. For that, we will go in the database and select the item tab. We can create an item in any place we want. It could be a blank spot, we can edit another item or we can increase the maximum items. Let's pick the second spot and give a name to the item. We can also select an icon. Let's add a description. And let's change the item type to key item, indicating it's an important mission object. Finally, we make it a non-consumable item by removing the option to consume it, the scope and when it can be used. Those parameters are useful for combat items. Now let's head back to our enemies tab. In the reward we can add the drop of the key with a 1/1 probability, aka we will always get the key. We can return to our door event. Let's create a dialogue for when we do not have the key. Now we can create another page, but, to avoid losing time by recreating the whole page, let's copy and paste the initial tab. In the new page, let's set the activation condition to item and then we can select our cage key. We can now create a dialogue for when we have the key. Let's set up a small dialogue, a self switch, a sound effect and a new empty page. Now let's set up our last event, Marcus' sister. First of all, we will start with a conditional branch to have two different dialogues in case the player accepted Marcus' request or not. In both cases, Marcus' sister will go away to find his brother. This is a good spot to introduce event movements. To move any event, including the player, we need to go in the second tab of the event editor and click on Set Movement Route. Here we can move our player. Simply click on the movements you want to do and don't forget to make him face the right direction at the end. A powerful feature added in RPG Maker MZ allows us to see the route of the event in a mini-map, so we can double-check to have done everything correctly. Now let's set up the movement for Marcus' sister. Here is where the preview option of MZ comes in handy. At the end of the movement we can also turn a switch on. Let's turn on switch 2 to signal to the game that the mission is over. Let's close this event by removing it with a blank page once the switch is on. Now for the last part of our tutorial, let's close with a cutscene. Let's return to the first map and let's have Marcus and Leah tell us goodbye. First thing, let's remove Marcus when the switch 2 is on. Then let's add 2 new events for them, but this time we will start with a condition. This means that until we have the switch 2 enabled, those 2 events will not be shown on the map. Now let's add an auto event. An auto event is an event that starts right when the condition is met. It's useful to create cutscenes, for example, as it will take control over the game. We need to select auto run in the trigger while setting the correct condition for it to start. We will make our hero move down, meet Marcus and Leah, they will speak, and then we will return to the game title. Our game is ready, let's try it. We have now finished our first lesson. I hope that it was useful for you, and if you have any question feel free to comment. More lessons will come. If there is any special request please tell me. Until next time, bye bye.